So the last live that I did was kind of trash. I'm not gonna lie. I gotta be honest, my platform and the quality, it just really isn't that. But I never wanted to be an influencer. And this is not what the podcast is going to be about. I'm just going to be talking momentarily before we get into the conversation. But I never wanted to be an influencer, and I never liked the attention that came with it. I grew up going to a lot of different schools. I was always like the new girl in like fourth quarter, semesters about to end, so me growing up, I faced a lot of judgment. I used to, experience some bullying, when I was at public schools, and it was just rough, right? And so I never really liked a lot of attention. And even just being a young girl, I just experiencing how lustful little boys were, and just seeing some of my classmates who, for whatever reason, right, were harassed, and just all the things, it just was never something that I wanted for myself. I think when I think about fame and just all the things, when I was young, I think I did like the attention in the sense of being out, being fashionable, people loving my outfit and all that right there. But when we started as a culture, right, because as much as I try to differentiate myself from social media, I be so no, I'm not online. I try to just stay in my own little world. It's to the point where even if I'm not online, the people that are next to me who are online are impacted by social media and social ideologies and paradigms. And they too exist within those frameworks. So somebody might like your outfit, and that's cool, right? They like your outfit, is fine. But then it kind of starts to turn into what some people might call social media brain. And then it starts to be this thing of are you a part of a club? Are you an influencer? Are you doing this for attention? Right? When it's no, I'm just existing. This is just me. And so I've kind of grown to just be averse from that. But outside of that, I don't really like a lot of people having something to say about me in my life. And I thought that it would be good for me to give you guys a little context, right? Because I've had people comment and say man, your stuff is really dope. I hope that it works out for you, and it, X, Y, and Z. But I just don't think it was a path that I ever wanted to take. I think even if I could do it, it just wasn't for me. I don't think it's about being thick-skinned or anything like that, because I don't really care. I just think it's something about, people saying nasty things, people coming at you crazy. I don't think I want to deal with that. You know what I mean? I don't think I want to deal with that. And I experienced a little bit of that. I had a video on TikTok that went viral for something that was completely opposite of my content, right? And this older woman is online attacking me, calling me light skinned, just craziness. And all these women are in the comments riding with this wave. I had another TikTok page on a video that went viral. Chance the Rapper had followed me, and I was talking about Dapper Dan, I wonder how's Dap doing, I wonder what was his partnership with LV, is he good, and all these people in the comments you need to worry about Dap, Dap is good, he's around the corner, are you even from New York, what's she talking about, right? Y'all always trying to start something. It just was so crazy. And I think for me, that energy is so nasty that I don't think it's worth it. I don't care if I can make $100,000. It's just not worth it to me. It's not worth it, because that type of stuff right there, I don't know what it is, but I think hearing so much of that, just the type of person I am, that it ain't about changing me. It actually makes me want to be very violent. I'm serious. I feel it wakes something up in me like a sleeping giant, and it just makes me just it's so disruptive to my peace. It's so disruptive to my true nature that it's not worth it. I don't care what the payoff is, right? Also, don't really care to be the spokesperson for anybody or any one particular group. Sometimes I do have moments where I'm man, I would love to see Renaissance Room interviewing some of the people who I feel are outcasted, or some of the people whose reputations have been ruined because of lies and certain narratives, right? I feel this platform can be a lighthouse. I feel it could do certain things for Christ, all these different things. But then it'd be no, because there's a part of me that also feels social media takes you away from your life. It takes you away from the opportunities that are in front of you. I had recently went to this panel where there was a lot of African Americans and some white Americans too, right? Just speaking about the injustices that occurred at the university and back in the day during medical malpractices, right? So a lot of people who were impoverished at the time were experimented upon and they didn't know it, right, without their consent. So we had this medical malpractice thing that just was really big. And I was able to go to that, and it just was very beautiful, and just connecting with some of the families who were the descendants of the patients who died and lost their lives, right? Just made me, and this is what I do, right? This is me always, right? But like, it makes me realize that there are opportunities outside of social media as well. And I do think maybe I'm a little fixed, maybe I'm a little rigid in that. And I think that's also in part why I don't care to have a platform, because I realize that I have limitations, right? There are certain things Jalen can't do. There are certain things Jalen don't want to do, right? So I don't really want to be the spokesperson in regards to people's lives and what people should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing, right? I even think about conversations I've shared with you guys about entrepreneurship, right? And so how some of that was my own cynicism, how some of that, again, could have been my own personal limitation. So it's like, I don't want to be the person to come out and speak to people and be like, yeah, this is what you should do, and this is what's up, and this is what I'm going to recommend, because, life is a little bit more complex. I think another thing, and what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about whether or not, and maybe, I'm going to touch on this in a way that I hope doesn't, veer into projection. So let me just make that very clear. I don't want to project, and I don't know if maybe other people can relate to this. I don't know if other people maybe feel the same way that I feel, right? But I think something has shifted in our culture and our values. Obviously, even if we don't want it to, like I said, personally, if you're not somebody who's an avid reader, and I won't even say an avid reader, I think if you are somebody who is online, just like, you're going to be influenced by online. And it's not because you're weak. It's not because you're wrong. It's really just about the environment. And so with that being said, a lot of people have made a lot of choices based on their environment. And so what's hot, what's cool, what's popular, whatever, that's what gets praised. And whatever is not hot, whatever is not cool, whatever is not popular is something that does not get praised, right? And so seeing like people make very life-altering choices, right? Life-altering decisions based on the things that they hear online, based on social trends, right? It's no different than like popularity, right? All the kids in school back in the day, right? They don't want to do their homework. They don't want to read. They want to drop out. They don't want to go to college. College is whack. College is a scam. Whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop, right? And those people who did go to college, who did read books, who weren't out wild out doing all the crazy stuff, like, you know what I mean? Who was just living life in a more, sturdy way, right? Because they weren't followers, maybe because they did have their own sense of self and their own independent thought. Maybe they were insecure, but I do think more oftentimes than not, we feel like as a society, right? And I'll say, well, I ain't gonna say that because that's heavy, but I will say just by and large, anybody who is not loud and boisterous and like, look at me, like who's not really carrying this sense of arrogance, we don't consider that person confident, right? We think confidence is this very like loud thing. And it's like, this is like, it's the big and bad, but reality, we all, you should know at this big grown age, that's not always confidence. And at the same time, right, people who are meek are not necessarily just confident and internally insecure, right? Sometimes people who are meek are actually insecure, right? So it's like, we can't really make any generalities. But one thing I will say is that, I start to realize how people make choices based off of social media, right? So, and based off of culture. And I don't want to say social media because it's really media by and large, right? I think I've shared with you guys multiple times the book Subverted by Sue Browder. And, she spoke about just how many women were getting abortions, at the rise of the women's rights movements and all these different things. And she shares her experience, her and her husband experience in getting the abortion and how she really regretted it. And I just think what's very interesting is that from the beginning of time, right, propaganda, marketing has always influenced how we think, how we move, how we feel, and the choices that we make, in regards to our lives. So anyway, jumping into today's episode, one of the questions that I've been thinking a lot about and something I've been wanting to pose is, for those people who have been cast aside, who've been overlooked, who've been miscategorized, misjudged, placed in a category of uninteresting, all the things, right? All the things, boring, et cetera, you have a bunch of people who were growing up, and everybody comes to this place at their own stage in life, right? But for those of us who've been here, right, who've been consistent in like telling people to get educated, telling people to read books, telling people to go to college, telling people to get, good jobs and have stability and then build businesses and all these different things, telling people to get married, I don't know, y'all. I feel like when influencers and famous people come out and do a tell all, it bothers me. And I'm not going to say it bothers me because it's not personal, but it is something that just like it. I'm not going to say it makes me hard. It makes it hard to have compassion for them. Because let me say this, I think me even saying this is very clear that everything is not for everybody, right? Because that could be very inspiration to some person who may be pursuing that path. But for me personally, I don't know. Because I feel like people will ride a wave until it no longer suits them. And they will influence the lives of a lot of people until it no longer suits them. Then they'd be like, you know what? Oh, now I want to take another path. Now, you know what? Now I want to take another path. Now I want to settle down, trade in my player cards. I want to get married, right? Now I want to, now you know what? Y'all should go to college. Y'all should get good jobs, right? I was at the top and, it wasn't really what it seemed. Like, I don't know why these stories just don't really land for me. I don't know why I don't know how to feel. And I'm just wondering, do you guys feel the same way? Like anybody else who has been on a straight and narrow, you know what I mean? You've been doing your thing. You've been pretty consistent in who you are and your values and what you stand for and what you're about. You know what I mean? But when the trend wasn't stability, when the trend wasn't that, when it wasn't what you were on all along, like how do y'all feel? Some people might call it the revenge of the nerds. I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I need revenge in regards to anything. I just think it's very interesting because I just think it's more so like a trend type of thing. And you have people who have these large platforms and they influence the lives of many people. At the end of the day, yes, they're just people. Okay. Obviously they're just people. Like people are just people. Everybody's got their own path, their own set of stuff. Like we're all just figuring this out. But I just don't know. Like, I think what it is, and I'm going to have to sit down and I really figure out what it is for me, but I'm just processing out loud for the sake of today's video. I think it's more so like that sense of like incongruence. Like I feel like, I don't know. I'm not going to say you don't know who you are because that's just way too, that's a bit much to say, because people have the right to figure it out. We all have the right to grow. And I think even for myself, some things will change with me, maybe later on in my life, we start talking about entrepreneurship. I don't know. Right. But I just feel like it's just something about people who just aren't consistent through the test of time. It's hard for me to because it's how you going to be all in, do this and that, influencer culture, whoop-de-whoop, look at my high rise, I'm doing all this stuff. Then you're going to come out couple years later, do a tell all. Oh, it wasn't as it seemed. I was broke. Whole time when people was back then, right? Some people who've been consistent saying, hey, we should not forsake education. Hey, we should not forsake stability, right? Hey, it isn't all what it seems. People who are overlooked, right? Don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're missing out. Don't feel like you have to quit your job. Don't feel like you have to put your family in debt, right? We were saying, hey, y'all, stay consistent. Stay on your path. The people who was getting money, who was the influencers, who was the whoop-de-whoop back in the day, it was nah, this is what you need to pursue. And, and it's just I don't know. Now you want to come out with a tell-all. We're I don't, that back and forth, I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how to feel about that. And it's not for me. I'm not your God. I'm not here to judge. I'm just more so to say there's really something about that just makes me I don't know how you could just turn it on and off like that. And then it's I love corporate. Corporate's great. I got a corporate job and, whoop-de-whoop. And it's yeah, that's what we've been saying. That's what we've been saying, So I don't know. Is it compassion that I'm lacking? Is it a lack of understanding? I don't know. I think it's way too simple to say, hey, I'm just mad because, I felt overlooked or I felt no, it's not really that. It's more so so many people's lives are impacted until it's not. And then it's if the culture says college is cool, then all the kids going to go to college. You see what I'm saying? I think that's the thing that just I don't like because it'd be where is your sense of self? And maybe that's what it's about. Or maybe it's something deeper. Maybe I need to sit and really figure it out. But I don't feel like I'm projecting. And the reason why I don't feel like I'm projecting is because, I've been here in this space. I've been here since you check my records, right? I got 900 videos up on YouTube. I've been in this space saying that college was important and people should go to educate. People should seek education and people should seek jobs and how people who don't go to college don't make a lot of money. I've been saying that entrepreneurship is, unstable, inconsistent income and all the things. I've been saying that. And so now influencers are kind of doing this thing of oh, it's a tell all and y'all are eating it up. And I have a hard time with that because it's the people who've been in that space, who've been saying, hey, y'all wasn't hungry. Y'all wasn't trying to eat that up. And even still, you're still so I don't know, y'all. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Peace.